Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about how we can evaluate some logarithmic expressions. So in the previous video, I'll link it in the cards right now, we discussed and kind of introduced what logarithms with base b are. So if you want to check that out in the cards, it'll be there right now. All right, so we want to remember that log base b of y is equal to x is the same thing as writing b to the x is equal to y. So basically we're going to take these four examples that are in logarithmic form, we're going to rewrite them in exponential form and see if we can figure out what our exponent should be. So remember, if we were to say that these were equal to x, so we'll go ahead and write that. Okay, so now we can rewrite this as 4 to the x power is equal to 256. And now we just have to ask ourselves, 4 to what power would be 256? Well, we know 4 to the first is 4, 4 squared is 16, 4 cubed is 64, and what's 64 times 4? 256. So we know this would be 4 to the fourth power. So in this case, we're going to say x is equal to 4. For number 2, we would have 8 to the x power is equal to 0.125. Now, 0.125 as a fraction would be 1 over 8, right? So now we say, okay, how do I go from a base of 8 to 1 over 8? Well, that means my exponent needs to be a negative 1. Okay, because 8 to the negative first would be just 1 over 8. All right, number 3, 1/3 to the x power equals 27. So now kind of the same thing. We're going from a fraction to a whole number here. So we know we need a negative exponent. And so let's say that x were negative 1, right? Well, then that would give us just 3, kind of like we just had on number 2, right? Well, 3 to what power is 27? 3 cubed, right? So instead of x needing to be negative 1, it needs to be negative 3. Because that would become 3 to the positive third, which would be 27. All right, and the last example, 64 to the x power is equal to 8. All right, so now kind of the same thing. We have 64 to what power is going to give me a base of 8? Well, we know we're not going to be negative here because we're not creating a fraction. However, think about rational exponents. Okay, so what if I had a fraction as my exponent? Well, that's the same as like taking the square root or the cube root or whatever our fraction is. So what root of 64 is 8? Well, it's the square root, right? Which means my exponent should be 1/2. Okay, and so that's how we can evaluate some logarithmic expressions.